And we are back with The Chosen Journey on episode chapter number 62 with Big Money Grip, Steve Karsay, the chosen lawyer. Steve Karsay, welcome back. We talked last week about Texas Rangers. You ready to talk about some egos today?
I would love to talk about some egos.
Okay, well, we're trying to soothe the egos actually, but we're going to be, we talked about Texas, a team you played for. We're going to have to go back to another team you played for, and that's the New York Yankees. Now, New York Yankees fans right now are dancing in the streets, but yet a little upset because, their favorite player, Aaron Hicks, got released, went to Baltimore, got 2 hits in his first game. So they're kind of reeling about that. New York Yankees fans always find something. Obviously, Josh Donaldson comes back, gets 2 home runs from injuries. They must be happy about that. But then, he goes over 4 the next game. This is life in New York. Steve Karsay, there's one thing I know for certainty is this much: death, taxes, and a certified closer for the New York Yankees. All season long, I've been predicting who I said was going to be the closer, and that's Mr. Michael King. And yet, every single game, no matter what, I am always wrong as far as who they're bringing on the 7th, the 8th, and 9th. We got Clay Holmes, Michael King, and Wandy Peralta. So we got the three-headed monster, the closer, the dreaded closer by committee. New York Yankees fans on sports radio are all trying to predict who's going to ultimately run with the job. They're bringing people into situations. Steve, I'm befuddled now because I watched the other day and Clay Holmes, he was coming in to the 8th, and I said, okay, this is a Michael King opportunity. He's going to come in the 9th for sure. No, it's Wandy Peralta, and he gets a save. I'm done predicting this thing. What is going on with the New York Yankees? Who's going to be the closer? Why are they doing this to us?
I just think it's closer by committee, to be quite honest with you. I think it's a matchup thing. When the game comes down there and Aaron Boone is playing the matchups, whether it's lefty, lefty, righty, righty, and he's just looking at the numbers on who's going to get that opportunity. And it could be any one of those three guys. And whoever matches up the best as they get through the 6th inning, he has it on his sheet that here's where I'm going to go 7, 8, and 9. I think he already has it in his mind where he's going to go 7, 8, 9 as the 6th inning is coming to a close.
So you're going to tell me that they know these pitchers and their histories of how they do in ballparks, day and night, the batters they're facing, and they're putting up all these matchups. Is that essentially where we're at now with this?
That is where we're at, and that's what they get on a daily basis. So he has the best options in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning that he wants to deploy as the game is telling him what to do and how they're coming down, whether it's close, whether it's spread out, who they're going to use. If it's within a 3-run distance and a 3-run game, this is who I want to use in the 7th because I got 2 lefties, and a righty. Now, if they pinch hit, it's a different story. That's the matchup game and the strategic part of it. But he's going to deploy who he feels is his best option in the 7th, what the matchups say, in the 8th, what the matchups say, and in the 9th, what the matchups say.
Let me take you to another step for a moment, and we'll step back to the Yankees for a moment. It comes back to the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't know why, just the way it's worked out. I've watched a few of their games, obviously. And a guy who was really he struck to me last year in the playoffs and in the start of this year was Alvarado. Now, Alvarado has been completely lights out. What is he averaging? 2Ks an inning. It's just the guy's been Jose Alvarado has been literally untouchable. Gets injured as he had just taken the job, ran with the closer job, ran up like 3 or 4 saves in a row, and of course he gets injured. That's how life goes. As he's been rehabbing, and now he's on rehab assignment, back soon. Craig Kimbrell all of a sudden decided to drink from the fountain of youth and decided to go back in time, and now he's back to the Craig Kimbrell Volt. Had a little bit of a rough start to the season, and all he's been doing has been lights out for the past few weeks. So now Alvarado comes back healthy. Does he get back his job? How does he feel if he doesn't get back his job? Does it really matter? How does all this kind of things play out in a clubhouse?
It depends on the manager and the pitching coach and the front office when they talk. But listen, it's hard to be out for 3, 4, 5 weeks and jump right back into pitching the 9th inning in a 1-run game when a guy's been doing it, for that period of time and has been pitching well like Kimbrel. So I think they slowly integrate him coming off rehab back into, probably the 8th inning, get him up the speed with, being able to pitch two days in a row, 2 out of 3. You don't want to overload a guy coming in off of, an injury rehab. So I just think they'll slowly integrate him in, and then when the matchup calls for it, if there's 2 out of 3 lefties, he'll probably get the call. If there's 3 righties, Kimbrel will probably get the call as long as Kimbrel's pitching the way he's pitching right now.
When you look at their pen, really like almost 4 guys, including Soto, could be the closer there. And I don't know what it is. Like, let's start from the fan point of view, and then talk about the players. Without talking now, when we're reading them up, for example, without direct knowledge of Alvarado and how he's feeling or Kimbrel, this is just more like an example. And talk about, we take this kind of setup. If this was any other team, how would this play out? But one thing you hear on sports radio, one thing you hear in the stands, fans like their designated closer. They love their setup man and their closer. And it tends to really frustrate them when they don't get this. But watching, like you're saying about the Yankees, for example, they seem to know what they're doing because it's working. If every guy is getting the amount of saves, but you're looking at the numbers, there's very little implosions. It's working. Whoever they put in the guy pitched ninth one game, all of a sudden he's pitching the seventh, and it's working. So to me, it's like, I don't love the idea of a closer by committee, but as a fan, if my team is winning, I could care less. If this is working great, let's go for it. Is it a similar mindset in a field in the same generally for players? I assume that if you have not been a closer before or very little use as a closer, if you are brought into closing opportunities, it's actually probably exciting. It's a good thing versus somebody who's used to being the man, being the closer, and also being put into this committee type situation. Maybe not that exciting. That's maybe why it is working. I would gonna guess for the Yankees because none of those guys ever were lockdown closer. Holmes a little bit, but at the end of the day, hey, stay healthy. You're getting your roles. We're winning games. That's all that matters. They seem to be buying into it. I would think that's the mindset.
Yeah, you have to have the players to be able to deploy that scenario in those situations. And it takes me back to 16, 17, and 18 with the Brewers before I got there. They had Jeremy Jeffers, they had Corey Knebel, and they had Josh Hader. And they did the same thing. And Craig Counsell, when he deployed that, he called them outgetters. The bullpen is outgetters. Doesn't matter what inning it is. When I deploy you, you're there to get outs. 3 outs, 4 outs, 5 outs until we get 27 and get to the end of the game. And the matchup was going to determine if Corey Knebel with big breaking ball closed the game, Josh Hader with the good fastball closed the game, or Jeremy Jeffers, who had a mixture of split fingers, fastball, and a breaking ball, is going to close the game. And the matchup determined which one of those 3 guys during the course of that game was probably going to get that opportunity. How the lineup just projected itself in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, and maybe use 2 out of those 3 guys on a particular day, and then you can give the next guy a rest and use 2 out of the 3 guys the next day and keep them in a rotation. So when the games are close, especially when you play games that are close all the time, you need multiple guys who can pitch at the back end of games to win those games. Those are the most important. You're going to have blowouts throughout the year where your what you call your A team is not going to pitch in those games, and your B team will, and that's just the way that teams are constructed and put together. So at the end of the day, you got to have the personnel to be able to do that. You got to have the guys with stuff, and you got to ultimately have, if it's good to have 2 righties and 1 lefty, or 2 lefties and 1 righty to be able to do that. It becomes more difficult with 3 right-handers with the splits and how they are, but you see the Yankees, they got 2 right-handers and a left-hander, right? It was the same thing with Hader and those guys with the Brewers in 16, 17, 18. That's what they had. Yeah, is it great to have a designated closer? Yeah. But what happens if you play 5 games in a row? You're going to have to use somebody else at some point. And if you have these guys have the experience at the back end and anybody can do that, and they're considered outgetters instead of giving a specific role, because then when you take that role away from a guy, he gets mad, or he gets his ego hurt, right? Or he's like, why am I not pitching in this situation? But if you know that you're going to pitch anywhere from the 7th to the 9th, then you prepare for that and you're ready for that. And when the opportunity presents itself, you go out there and play.
How does a pitching coach, manager generally react when you have somebody come in, knock on the door, I'd like to speak to you, close the door, and one of the bullpen guys and says, look, I'm sometimes in the 7th, sometimes in the 8th, sometimes in the 9th. I'm looking at the numbers and everything. I'm the most dominant person here. It's very obvious. I have the best numbers. I'm excelling, yet I am very rarely being used in the ninth role. I should be the closer. I want the opportunity. Let's make this happen. Otherwise, when my contract is out, I'm going to go to someone who will give me that role. Does that kind of thing, does these circumstances do happen in life? Or is this more of a movie type scenario that I'm invoking?
No, it happens all the time. But at the end of the day, you're the employee, right? They get to use you wherever you want. And if you set the precedent early in spring training and have these conversations with these guys prior to the season starting, then there probably usually isn't, the scenario that you're talking about. Yeah, of course it happens. Everybody wants to be the closer, right? Because you want to collect the saves and you want to get paid more money. That's just the At the end of the day, that's the facts. Nobody gets paid for holds. Holds are great, but at the end of the day, you get paid for saves. When you go to arbitration, it's how many saves you got, not how many holds you got. Uh, as a starter, it's how many wins you got, not how many times you have. You know, I got into the sixth inning. At the end of the day, in arbitration, it's different. Money plays into the factors as well as some of these teams using different guys, and it's up to the player ultimately to understand the role, to have that culture before the season starts of what it's going to be. But as you said, at the end of the day, there's always guys who are disgruntled who want to do that, and you just got to make sure that this doesn't disrupt the clubhouse and take away from the chemistry, especially if you're winning. And a lot of times when that happens and that door opens up and the guy walks out, they're looking for somebody to take that off their hands and trade him and get something in return for a guy who will want to play that role. And that's the business side of baseball, unfortunately, but it happens.
You look at a team like you mentioned Baltimore, thinking that I was going to bring up Baltimore the other day. And why is Baltimore doing so well? Well, you take a look, they essentially have two closers. Cano's numbers as the setup man, he is the top reliever in baseball, essentially, does not walk anybody, strikes out everyone pretty much, doesn't have any
Mm-hmm.
runs. I think he had one run so far this year, but he ain't the closer. Batista is. But look, Batista and his numbers, he deserves to be the closer. He's done his job. He's no reason to pull him out. And again, embarrassment of riches. You have two guys that essentially are locking down the eighth and ninth out of 9 innings. You're doing pretty well there. I would say that's not the whole reason why Baltimore has won more than they have, but certainly a big step towards it.
But isn't it nice to have two guys that you can count on at the end of the game, whether you're going to use them in the same game or whether you're going to alternate them and give them rest so they can stay healthy for the remainder of the season? I mean, like I said, that's essentially what you want to do. You want to put guys in situations that they're going to succeed, and not only for them to succeed, but for your team to succeed. And when you can get all the guys to buy into that formula, that's where you get winning ball clubs.
So for as many times as I'm right in life, I'm as many times wrong. And there's one thing that I thought from WBC days that I thought was going to happen. It's more stronger than it did. The Oakland A's still use it at points. The Rays use it occasionally, and that is the opener. And I thought the opener was a genius idea. You take two closers essentially. One closer opens the game, becomes the opener, and one closes out the game. So you bring in the fire thrower, screw up the mechanics, then you bring in your soft thrower guy in the middle innings, and then you bring in the fire thrower at the end. Unless it's only I see right now openers only really used when you're shorthanded, somebody's on the DL, somebody is not available, and they just got to pitch staff together. But I thought the opener was going to be more of a thing, to be honest. I thought, we were seeing less and less starters throwing complete games, a lot of them throwing 5 innings. So if we're going to get rid of the egos altogether, let's take the starter, let's put him in the middle, and let's put in the opener. Why are we not seeing more of the opener, Steve? Like, what happened to this concept? Is it still there, do you think? And do you think it may grow bigger in the future?
I mean, I think it's still there for certain teams, the way they deploy their pitching staff. But at the end of the day, when you look at who you're playing and who the beginning of the lineup is, it comes down to leverage situations. What is the highest leverage situation where I want to use my best guys? Is it in the seventh inning with the bases loaded and one out, and I want to bring my guy in who I know can punch guys out? Or do I want to burn that guy in the first inning where if they score a run or two, or if we put up a zero, it is what it is. If I burn that guy in the first inning, who's my closer, who I know I can use in a situation that's high leverage and I just burn him for the first inning, is it worth it? And I think more teams than not are saying, I don't want to burn my one of my best arms in the bullpen to get the first 3 outs of the game, and I still got 8 to play, as opposed to in the seventh, eighth, or ninth inning. So, again, it comes down to personnel. If you have 4 guys in your pen that can close games, yeah, maybe you can use an opener in the very beginning. But I just I see teams moving away from that because of how the game is being played.
Well, maybe we could share one secret with the fans, because there's one thing the fans would like to know. They have a lot of information on the inside, but we secretly all talk and we say we know that there's some innings that are more important than others. So for me, if I was a manager, the first inning, I want to send a statement. I want to step on their throat. I want to score as many runs. I don't want to give up any hits. I want to really send a statement in the first inning. But I've heard rumors that the first inning isn't that important. How do you feel about that? Are there certain innings in your mind, generally in a baseball game, that are more important than others?
I mean, I guess again, it comes down to personal, and then the analytics on how they determine that. But yeah, of course, everybody wants to score first, right? Everybody wants to put up a couple runs early. But when you got a full game and you only got starters going 5 innings and throwing 100 pitches, and then you get into bullpens, do you want to burn those bullpen guys early? It's really tough. It just comes down again to personnel. It comes down to where I want to use my guys. Because at the end of the day, when you're coming down to the end of the game, you don't know what inning is the most important. It could be 4-3 in the eighth with the bases loaded, right? You bring in your best reliever to get out of that jam, and then you go ahead and you score 5 runs in the top of the ninth, and now you're up 9-3. So if you're saving your closer or your best high leverage reliever for the ninth inning, you no longer need him because you're up by 6 or 7 runs now, and you could use somebody else. So I think that's the way teams are attacking this is high leverage, arm, get me out of that. Hopefully we can put up some runs and spread the game out a little bit longer instead of using a weaker guy in that situation, giving up the lead and having to claw back, because the percentages go way down in the last 2 innings right now if you've lost the lead in the eighth or the ninth to actually win the game.
It's like the way the seventh inning works. How many times in the seventh inning, I'm going to save my closer for the ninth, but then if you didn't bring somebody into a high leverage situation, you get blown out the other way. There's no point in bringing my closer because I was up by 1. Now I'm down by 4. So it can go the reverse so many times. But hindsight is always 2020, as they say. So it'll be interesting to see where the Yankees go with this as we come back full circle. I think a good spot to have. I mean, 3 guys that they could name a closer theoretically and are doing the job. So I think better than not the certainty that the Yankees fans want. But even generally with the Yankees fans right now, it's a team that, guys are shifting from different positions. It's not so set because you got to find the right chemistry, the right mix. And that's how it works. So you said many times, no matter what your salary is, if you have a high market team, it's about wins and losses, and it's not personal, it's business.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the manager is going to put together a lineup that he feels is the best to put out there on that particular day to win. He's got to take into account guys that need rest, guys that have played 6 days in a row. We're long gone from the Cal Ripken days where you're playing every day. We've gotten to this world now where they feel like guys need rest to rest their bodies to perform at a high level. And some of those guys play more than others. And some of those guys, need a day off so they don't get hurt. And especially when you're paying balloon salaries and, anywhere from 15, 20, 25 million, giving them a day off isn't a bad thing if you have somebody who can fill in and kind of just hold down the fort until that guy's, ready to come back the next day. And then you have a pinch hitter off your bench. If you don't use that guy in the lineup, you can deploy him depending on how the game goes and in a key spot.
Well, you read my mind, Steve Karsay, because next week we are going to be talking about managers. So you are on the mindset there. So we'll talk about the roles of managers and have all sorts of interesting talk about managers next week. Topic we have not touched upon, but definitely in this year, I think it's interesting to look at. I have a little bit of information for you for next week. How's that?
Great. Look forward to it.
All right. Well, stay tuned, folks, for the Chosen Journey. We'll be back next week with Steve Karsay, Big Money Grip. As always, thank you for your insights. And let's see by the end of the year, I guess, who's closing for the Yankees. It could be somebody totally different.
Yeah, let's see how it is. Maybe at the trade deadline, right? So it's been great to be with you again.